Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning if you happen to be on the West Coast, and welcome to today's webinar entitled An Introduction into SAP SuccessFactors Compensation. My name is Rihanna Thompson, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. Today, Illumity HCM is happy to have you all join us for part 3 in our Talent Management webinar series. This is an ongoing series covering a variety of topics in talent management. As many of you know, parts 1 and 2 are already available online to view at your own demand. Today, we are joined by Rebecca Murray, Managing Partner of our SuccessFactors practice. Before handing it over to Rebecca, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping items. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenter. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type them out into the chat. However, in the interest of time, I will be trying to get to most of those questions at the end of the presentation during our Q&A. But if you have any difficulties throughout the presentation, feel free to send in a quick question and I will assist however I can. We will hopefully have time to get to everyone. With that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Rebecca Murray.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm very excited to walk you through an overview of compensation by SAP SuccessFactors. Just a few slides to get us started today. We'll be talking briefly about the basics of SAP SuccessFactors. We'll look at a few feature and functionality slides as it relates specifically to compensation, and then we'll jump right into our demonstration. And for those of you who have seen some of the previous sessions in this talent management series, you'll probably recognize a few of the screens that we're about to go into, and that will kind of allow you to have a continuous feel for the overall talent solution. So if you haven't seen those demos yet, go ahead and check them out on our website. Just a little bit of background about me. My name is Rebecca Murray. I'll be walking us through this session today. I've been working in this space for probably longer than I care to admit, but enjoy working with customers of all shapes and sizes and helping them get their systems up to speed. Okay, let's talk one or two basics as we do a little bit of foundation setting. For those of you who are not familiar with SAP SuccessFactors, SuccessFactors is SAP's cloud-based human capital management solution, and it covers everything from start to finish. That includes recruiting and onboarding, core HR data. We have features and functionality for performance and goals, learning management, succession development, and of course compensation, which we'll be taking a look at today. What's really nice about our suite of solutions here is that you can pick any one of these areas and start your implementation work there. So if your immediate need is in fact a compensation planning tool, we can start with that particular piece. There are no prerequisites in terms of running some of these other pieces. All of these different solution sets can actually run in a standalone fashion. And certainly when you do run more than one, then there's that sharing of information across the board because they're all there on that same platform. So it's very easy, for example, to have performance scores help drive compensation. Okay, let's take a little bit deeper dive at the topic of compensation. We tend to think of three key areas, at least within our solution set on the SuccessFactors side. And those are model, manage, and motivate. The idea of modeling is that we can look at various different scenarios in terms of pay increases, job leveling. We can look at things around how guidelines will play out in certain scenarios and essentially do a little bit of budget exercising prior to the actual planning side of things. And this is helpful for those of you on the comp specialist side of things, or if budgets ultimately roll up under your purview, being able to come in and do some of these modeling scenarios and have various different guidelines where you can kind of tweak and massage some numbers just really helps to make the overall actual planning process a little bit easier when you're able to do some of that pre-work. On the manage side of things, this is where we really look to engage managers, perhaps department heads, leaders across the organization to get their input for compensation awards, whether that be merit increases, bonuses, stock or equity awards, cost of living adjustments, lump sum payments, really any type of award that you might give out to an employee. We're able to manage that here in our system. And then finally on the motivate side, this is for those kind of one-off type opportunities where you want to recognize someone for the work that they've done. It serves as both an engagement tool and also a motivational tool. So if you have an employee who has just gone above and beyond or has really triumphed through, a trying project or a trying situation, and you want to show your appreciation for them, you can do so using our rewards solution. So those three components, model, manage, and motivate, that's what we'll focus on in today's session. When we talk about some of the things that make our solution a little bit unique or a little bit, in front of our competitors, I like to think of just the robustness of the solution. It can really handle any type of award that an organization gives out. We even have some customers that don't give out monetary-based awards. They give out components, and we can give out widgets, and we can give out stock units. So being able to kind of have all of those plans managed in a single system means that you can produce consolidated statements around awards and rewards. The other thing that I like to highlight is that this solution is extremely global. So for those of you out there who have business units in different countries, being able to plan in multiple currencies, being able to seamlessly flip back and forth between currencies, where a manager can look at an employee's currency and then the company's currency and try to round numbers up across the board. It just provides a more meaningful tool. Okay, here are some of the features and bits of functionality that we will look at today. And this is really in relationship to on the planning side of things. So what we typically see in terms of planning for base salary, short-term incentives, and then long-term incentives. So I mentioned just about any type of plan that someone could put forward, we are able to put that into our solution. So hopefully this will give you a good snapshot of what's to come in our demonstration. The other thing that I like to remind people is that as we go through these exercises, really the power of the solution itself is the built-in rules and guidelines. So any rules that you may have around eligibility, around proration, around requirements for time and job, recent promotions, things like that impact either eligibility or award amount. All of those pieces will be kind of enmeshed into the system itself. So your managers won't ever be able to give an award to someone who isn't eligible to receive it. It takes a lot of the manual checks and balances out of the way and does a lot of that for you. And so this is a look at the modeling piece we'll be seeing today in the demonstration. What I like about this particular bit of functionality is that it lets you see some of the outcomes of potential decisions before you have to make them. So if you're talking about setting certain guidelines around merit budgets, a certain percentage versus another, or certain awards and proration guidelines and how they might be impacted by, recent hires and things like that. These modeling components will allow you to see the outcome and then also make recommendations. So if you've got some guidelines in there that are throwing you over budget, the system will make recommendations on where you can go about, realigning some of those numbers to put yourself back within your budget. So quite a very powerful tool. On the planning side, again, this is where we get really hands-on with managers and leaders across the organization and look to them for their input in terms of allocating merit awards, cost of living adjustments, any type of promotion activities, cash awards, This could be an annual process, it could be a semi-annual process, it could happen quarterly for some organizations. But this is really the meat of the solution where the planning actually takes place and the budgets are kind of run up into each other. And then finally, rewards and recognition. So this is where a manager or higher level leader can just provide a type of monetary reward for work that's been done. This is really on an ad hoc basis. We can put some rules in terms of, eligibility and keeping track of who's received what in the past. But the idea here that this can be done just kind of on a spot basis to help reward people, to help keep them engaged, and really to recognize them for good work well done. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our demonstration so that we can take a look at these features that we've been discussing. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize this screen and pull up my system and we can get started. I am here in a web browser. I'm logged in right now as Anya Singh. She is our system administrator. When someone logs into the system recognizes who they are and what role they play within the organization. And as a result of doing that, displays a homepage like the one that you're seeing here. So Anya happens to be an individual contributor, so she doesn't have any team management components here, but she does happen to be a system administrator, so you can see she has this admin favorites tile here. She also has some dashboards that help her manage her area of responsibility. All of these dashboards are actually dynamic, so she can drill into them and get a listing of the data that's behind it. We even have some quick links there to export that data out or to contact all the people who are represented in a particular graph. Up at the top here, we have this to-do section. Any activity that is pending her attention or where she needs to go in and perform some type of task or step or approval, all of those items are there waiting for her at the top. The idea being that we wanted to put things at the top so that as people log in, it's the first thing that they notice. Especially for people who maybe aren't in the system on a regular basis, perhaps your employees and your managers just come in here to do kind of periodic work. We want to make sure that they have what they need right there in front of them. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the modeling functionality. This is where we'll start in today's demonstration. Then we'll take a look at the planning piece and then the rewards and recognition piece. And since Anya is our system administrator, we're going to run through this first scenario from her point of view. And to get to the modeling tool, we just come down here to admin favorites. I've got a link set up right into compensation home. This is going to pull up for Anya a list of all the different compensation plans that she administers. And if there are guidelines or modeling plans that have been put in place, they'll be here ready for her to review as well. So all of her compensation plans are listed here on the left-hand side. You can see she can scroll through very quickly. They're all hyperlinked, so she can go in and actively view those sheets. You can see for this 2021 annual salary, equity, and incentive plan, we have 4 models worked out. And this little icon here is our guideline modeling icon. So when she clicks on this particular icon, it's going to bring her into the modeling portion of our solution. So here she is working out a series of different models for 2021 around salary, equity, and incentive planning. So you can see here on the left-hand side, she has 2 scenarios that she's working through. She is working through the idea of having a 2% increase on the merit budget or a 3% increase on the merit budget. This little tile here is giving her a snapshot of what that will cost. And then she's entered in some particular guidelines of where she hopes to be in terms of spend. And you can see that the system is telling her in both of these scenarios she's below the target. In the middle, and then over here on the right-hand side, we have some information about stock options. And so she's going in and modeling some different scenarios here. If she wants to add in a new scenario for consideration, perhaps she wants to look at what a 4% merit increase would do, she can click this add button here. and add in a new scenario, or she can come into any of these scenarios and see some of the parameters which have been entered, which kind of dictate how these numbers are being calculated. So you can see here she's got guidelines. She happens to have put in 37 of them. And these are just rules that the system is going to look at when calculating out these different guidelines or these different budgets. So in this case, she's saying what happens when someone has a particular rating on the performance side, what happens when they're inside their salary range or outside of their salary range, and to what extent, what some of the minimum and high and maximum components should be, percentages, costs. In this case, she's working in US dollars. But as you can scroll through, you can see that she has put in different behaviors that she wants this model to take into account. And as a result of these different rules or parameters that she has put in place, the system is calculating what that overall spend amount would be. She's put in a target, and now we can see what the overall deviation is. Based on this information here, which is calculated off of these guidelines, the system is making some recommendations. And because she's under or below her target, you can see that most of these recommendations are to make some increases. So based on the guidelines that she has put in place in terms of if someone's in a certain range or has a certain score, then the amount should be this much. The system's giving her counts of who falls into those categories and therefore calculating what the award amount would be. The system's making some recommendations to up some of those awards to help reach her target. And you can see the ones in green are the increases. They're represented here with green arrows. So the system's just recommending that she can increase some of these values for some of these awards. And as a result, the different award amounts will increase by a certain percentage. And there's actually just one recommendation for her to kind of move those numbers down. And that's to reduce a certain target here or certain guideline that she's put in and what the cost savings there would be. Now, all of these pieces are hyperlinked. So if she wants to adopt one of these rules, she can click on that hyperlink, and the system is going to confirm that she wants to make the recommended change. So here is the target that we're hoping to achieve. Here's where we are currently, and the system's just saying if we make some changes across the board by a certain amount, it will increase the award amount in order to meet our target. And so we can go ahead and make the recommended adjustment here by clicking this Save and Update button. So a very powerful tool if you're the person in charge of putting together budgets, or when someone from the finance office calls and said, how much do we think we'll be giving away in increases this year or in bonuses this year, that you have these particular tools where you can run your scenarios. And I think this year has been a whirlwind for many of us, where some things we thought were happening didn't happen, and some things we didn't plan on did happen. And so you're probably going to be running some more modeling exercises than perhaps you have in previous years. And if you're running those exercises off of a spreadsheet, then it can be very, very challenging to come up with numbers that are this precise. This is an extremely powerful view that works well. Normally, I would say project it up in a boardroom as you're having planning meetings with colleagues. But nowadays, we're putting these up on a Zoom screen, still with the same impact, though. And what people, of course, like to see is that these items are in green. And depending on what your initiatives are, either a lot of green or just a little bit of green. But certainly we want to avoid the scenarios where we have gone over and we've got items in red. So you can see based on the different stock options that are being allocated to different types of jobs and different levels within each of those jobs, the system is making some recommendations to reduce, in most cases, many of those planned awards. And that will help bring this particular scenario back within the target budget. Okay, I am going to return to our home screen and do a little bit of a reset. Our next piece to look at within our demonstration today is on the planning side. And this is one of my favorite pieces to demonstrate. I'm actually going to log out of the system and log back in as a manager. We're going to look at the system from the perspective of a manager named Maya and go through some scenario planning exercises with her team. So let me go ahead and switch roles real quickly, and we can go ahead and walk through her scenarios. Okay, so this is Maya's homepage. You can see it's a little bit different from Anya's homepage. It's a little bit busier. That's because we have a lot of demo scenarios set up here. And because Maya's a manager, she manages a team. So not only does she need to be able to do basic compensation planning activities, but she also has the ability to, approve requisitions for recruiting and time off requests and things like that. But regardless, we have, again, in this case, put all of the key important things that she needs to turn her attention to up here to the top under the to-do list. As we scroll through this screen, we can also see that we have quick links out to other areas of the system as well. So regardless of what she's coming in here to do, she's going to be able to quickly navigate into those particular areas. So let's go ahead and look at compensation planning from Maya's standpoint. Again, she's our manager and she's running us through a few of these different planning scenarios. She has two planning activities that she's engaged in. The first is an annual planning activity and the second is a variable pay activity. So I'll go ahead and choose the annual planning activity. For those groups out there who do have some type of variable pay, perhaps a target-based award. It could be an individual component. There could be a corporate component or a business unit component. Those types of awards are supported in our system as well. Here's Maya looking at the planning sheet for her annual salary, equity, and incentive awards. And we notice a number of things as we go through here. 5 employees that she's planning for. These are her direct reports. Maya happens to be a higher level manager, so she has individuals underneath her direct reports that roll up to her. And if she wants to, she can use these filter options here to drill down into her area of responsibility. So right now she's looking at her individual team members, her direct reports. And as she clicks on this budget link here, it's going to pull up the budgets for her team members shown on this list. But as she adjusts her filter options, these budget numbers will adjust to reflect the employees that are being displayed. So she can actually see roll-up budget amounts as she's going through and doing her own planning activities. Now, several areas throughout the system have what we call these insightful analytics tiles or links here. You can see it's a little icon, just a little graph in the corner. Most areas of the system have them. They're available to managers and administrators, but I like to call them on-the-spot analytics because it's just a little icon there in the corner where a manager or administrator can click to get some more information. So if she's wondering about team's total compensation or average compensation by department, and she wants to drill in to find out any of these values or specific bits of information, all of these tiles that are showing here are dynamic. She can actually drill into these values and get the listing of data behind them. So just a nice little bit of, supporting information to help her as she walks through these scenarios. Now, what are we seeing here on this screen? It's a series of rows and columns, and I happen to be an Excel person, so I'm very fond of rows and columns, broken out into some blocks of information. First, we have employment information for each employee listed here, including job level, hire date, and if there's any proration amount that is reflected. Current pay information, so current rate of pay, salary type, we've got pay grades, we've got currencies that we're planning in. Here we have salary ranges, so both the min and the max. And then the system will do the calculations for us in terms of comp ratio and range penetration. Now, some of my customers say, Becky, we do not even have pay grades. We don't have ranges. We don't do comp ratios. We just don't take it to that extent. And that's fine. If you're seeing data fields on here that just don't apply to your group, then we just pull them out. So every group is going to have a view that has purposeful data for them. If there's something that's missing that's not on here, perhaps there's another data field that your managers find value in when doing their planning exercises, then we can put that data field here on the screen as well. As we move over on this planning sheet, we get into the area where we start to do our awards. And you can see here we are doing awards for merit, cost of living adjustments, country-specific adjustments, lump sum, and then the system's going to calculate for us a final salary. Now, as I look at each one of these pieces, I see that the system is providing me with guidance. First off, I noticed that here for country-specific adjustment, this is grayed out. These are not values where I can make entries or make changes. This is just based on a fixed value for a known location. So manager does not need to make any entries here. This country-specific adjustment is being applied automatically. Second off, I noticed that there are some grayed out values for a handful of employees. That could just be based on the type of work that they do or their eligibility. In Deborah's case, she happens to do a little bit of hourly work, so her planning is done in a different number set. I'm also seeing some ranges or guidelines here on the merit side of things, and I can choose to view them in percentages or dollars. And as I come and make entries for my different employees, the system is doing a series of checks. You can see this value that's entered here, 2%, falls within my 1 to 3% range, and as a result, it's highlighted here in black. But my next employee, Steve, has been given an increase of 13%, and that falls way outside his range of 3 to 5%. And as a result, the system is highlighting that in red. Now, depending on your particular rules or plan guidelines, you can allow managers to plan outside of a guideline, or you can lock it down and very firmly say all awards must be within the given merit guidelines here. So it just depends on your preference if you want some type of warning or if you want that to be a hard error. For example, if we look at Jeffrey Hill here, he's at 2% right now, but if we change that to 12%, it will go outside of his guidelines, and it's going to let us know that that particular increase amount is in fact outside of those guidelines. So now it's highlighted in red for me, and if I pull it out, it goes back to being highlighted in black. Now you might have a particular employee, such as Armando, who has a 0-0 merit guideline here. And if I come in and try to give him some type of award, the system's going to let me know why it is recommended that he not receive an award here. And it is simply because given his salary and the range for his particular job, he is already outside of the recommended salary range. And so according to the parameters of this plan, the recommended suggestion here is that a lump sum payment be given in lieu of a merit increase. And so the system's just letting us know that we have gone outside of that range, and instead we should come over and give some type of lump sum increase. So any of your rules around proration, around eligibility, around ranges, around required time and job, any of these things are actually built into the foundation of these sheets. So as I come in as a manager, Maya, to do this bit of planning, I'm not able to plan outside of those guidelines or parameters. Those of you who are currently doing compensation planning on spreadsheets, you probably, one, spend quite a bit of time preparing the sheets and sending them out. But when you receive them back and you're working to consolidate them, you're probably finding that managers added people onto the sheet who weren't eligible, or who made an entry outside of a guideline, or someone was supposed to be prorated and they weren't prorated. because when you've got spreadsheets, you can kind of make your own rules around them. But here the rules are in place in the system, and you can enforce them to the extent that your plan requires. As we come in and do all of our different planning activities, the system is calculating out the final pay. And so if there's been an increase in salary, increase in grade because there was a promotion activity, a recalculation of comp ratio and range penetration, and then total award amounts here, giving us a nice snapshot or summary. And of course, as awards are being made here in the sheet, the system is updating accordingly. And you can see based on some of the awards we've recently given, we are now over budget in this particular category. When we go in to do some type of submission, we have a series of approvals. This is up to you who should approve and when, but you can see here it's going to another manager for approval, then to a department head, and then ultimately to someone in payroll for review. So it could be that the system does not allow you to submit any awards that take you over your budget, or perhaps you have a more lenient policy where you say, okay, you know, I'm going to need a note for justification as to why you went over, and when you click on this complete button, it will prompt you to fill in some notes. Another thing that we are seeing here as we look at some of our different planning scenarios is this concept of currency. We have the ability to plan in different currencies. You can see the planner's currency here is in the US. That's what we're currently planning in. Well, we can actually choose to plan in a corporate currency. So if your corporate currency, let's say, is euros or Canadian dollars, you can plan in that value. You can also choose to plan in the employee's local currency, which is very helpful if you're a manager who manages employees in several different countries, that you can come in and give, you know, a 5% increase and then look at that value or that equivalent value in the employee's local currency and maybe round it up to the nearest whole dollar or $5 or $100, whatever it may be, to give that employee a nice round number. So even though it might not be your local currency, you don't have to keep track of conversion factors. The system's going to allow you to flip back and forth. The last thing that I want to look at on this particular planning sheet before we look at it from a slightly different view is just this idea of equity. So being able to see some different types of awards, perhaps stock options, perhaps some type of short-term or long-term incentive that can be awarded out to employees. And you can see the sheet looks very similar. Again, we have our employee listing here. We have job level, performance reviews if they have one, which might drive some type of guideline, and then a series of guidelines and ultimately people filling in their to be awarded values. So giving out stock options and RSUs here in this particular example. And if there is some type of, you know, cash equivalent that's associated with it, you can have that be calculated out on a compensation statement. Keeping in mind that if there's, you know, an exercise period or holding period prior to exercising, that those award amounts may end up changing. Okay. I'm going to take us back to that salary planning sheet and look at things just a little bit differently. Because I happen to be a spreadsheet person, I very much enjoy my rows and columns. That's kind of how my mind thinks, very, you know, across the board, you know, read left to right, up and down type thing. But not everybody thinks that way. And so for some people, this particular view can be a little tricky to plan in. And so what we have the ability to do is come here and click on an employee's name. You can see that all the names are hyperlinked. So I can click here to open up a compensation planning profile, which we'll look at in just a moment. I can also click here to open up their employee profile and see some basic information about this employee. Any notes that myself as a planner have entered or any other planner has entered can be viewed here. But then I have quick links to go in and look at a profile, some of their performance achievements, perform a promotion activity, or look at their placement in a 9-box. So just some quick hyperlinks to supporting information to help me walk through this process. But here's the alternate planning view, and I get there just by clicking on an employee's name, and it pulls up for me this compensation profile. Now it's the same information that we saw in the row column format. It's just laid out here at the individual employee level. So instead of having a consolidated view, we're looking at one employee at a time. Again, here's some of their basic job information. I also have some supporting background. Here I can see compensation history, what awards have been given over time. I can look at that from the compensation and the stock angle. As I scroll down, I get information about salary positioning. So this is the range penetration and the compa ratio. And you can see there's a new value in blue and an old value scratched out in gray. And I can see those values represented here as well. That is because when we scroll down just a little bit further, you can see that the planning values for this employee from the planning sheet have been pulled into this compensation profile view. Now, as I scroll down a little bit more, I get some of my supporting information. Here's the hire date. Here's my overall proration amounts, my job title, how much I currently get paid as an employee, what that current rate of pay is per pay period. Here's the grade. Here's that compa ratio, the range penetration. So all of my market information. And then scrolling down, I have blocks for each type of award where this particular employee has eligibility. Here we see the merit at 2%, just like we saw on the planning sheet out here. Here we see an adjustment, a country-specific adjustment, a lump sum, and a promotion. Down at the bottom, we're seeing the final calculated results. So if I decide that this pay increase shouldn't be 2%, but instead should be 2.5%, I can type and make my entry here. Likewise, all of the rules of the planning sheet are respected here as well. So if I decide to make this 12.5%, then the system is going to give me the same warning I would expect to see on the consolidated planning sheet. So for managers who like to plan one employee at a time, look at the information from top to bottom instead of left to right, this is a nice sheet. As someone's going through and making their entries here, that final salary is being calculated and updated here at the bottom. And I can actually click on this next button to be brought to the profile of my next employee. In this case, it's Steve Harris. Here he is. I can scroll up to the top to see his supporting information, historical compensation awards, job information to help me with my decision, and then I get down to my different planning pieces here. And as you'll recall, Steve was one of those ones who is outside of the guidelines. You can see it's represented here, and the system's giving me those same warnings. I can choose to put him within the guidelines or submit him as he is, and then be prepared to kind of justify my award outside of the guidelines. Using these previous and next buttons down here at the bottom, I can continue to walk through my list here. So same activity, same data, just presented in a slightly different format, because we know that kind of, people like to work in different ways. They have different ways that they like to view things. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at our last piece of functionality. And I can jump right into that piece, reward and recognition here. I can also come back to my home page and kind of kick that process off from scratch. And for our demo purposes today, that's the route that I'm going to take. So again, we're here in the system. We're still logged in as Maya Cooper. When we scroll down just a little bit, we can see that we have this section called My Team. This is where she's able to come in and manage her team members. So she's able to perform her manager self-service tasks, and she has this reward and recognition tile right here. As she clicks on that particular tile, it will initiate the reward and recognition process. And you can see it's a pretty neat tool. It's got some different types of award programs listed out here. Peer appreciation, a general thank you, values recognition program. She can also come in and see the awards that she has sent out in the past, as well as awards that she herself have received in the past. She can see her different team members, what awards have been given recently. She can come in and view some additional details. And then if you do have some type of budget, that can be kept track of here. Not all of these programs will have budgets behind them, but you can certainly set up a little bit of a budget here if you want to keep track of that. So in order to use this bit of functionality, we just come in and choose the type of award we'd like to give. And then we nominate people to receive those awards. And we can see, based on the little data boxes here, who has received this type of reward in the past. So if I think that Gordon has just done a wonderful job displaying our corporate values and I really want to give him some recognition, I can select him. You can see it's now moved him over into the selected column. I can do this for more than one person at a time. So if I want to nominate Steve as well, I can do so. If I decide, you know what, Steve, he could be in line for some recognition next quarter, I want to go ahead and remove him and just focus on Gordon, I can quickly X him out to remove him from this list. And this is a guided process. So you can see I'm going to move along some steps across the top. Moving into step 2, I'm going to be prompted to choose the level of award to give him. So you could have, let's say, a bronze, silver, gold. You could have a level 1, level 2, level 3. In this case, we are choosing whether this is a first-time recognition or a second-time recognition. And for this particular employee, it is his first time receiving this recognition. And you can see as we're choosing things, this kind of path of steps is dynamically updating. I've chosen an award and a person, I've chosen a level, and now I need to choose an amount. This system, based on that level of first-time award, has given me some guidelines as to what is typically given. And it's actually defaulted in the commonly given value or amount here. So $50 US in this case, but I certainly can come in and adjust that award within the guidelines that are provided here. So I'll keep it at $50 US and move along to step 4. I have the ability to write in a note or a message or some type of thank you and acknowledgement here to the employees receiving the recognition. And when I'm done, I click on step 5, and the system is going to give me a summary of what is being sent, to whom, the dollar amount, and then the message. And I come here and click on my submit button to submit this award. Now, depending on what your protocol is around these types of awards in the system, we can have this go for approval, or if managers kind of have their own money to disperse for these types of activities, their own budgeted amounts, then we can just have that submit button send the award right away. So it's just up to you how you want some of these pieces to function. Okay, let's return to our home screen here and talk about kind of our wrap-up topic for today, and that is the concept of reporting. Because all of this is great, being able to do the modeling and put in our guidelines, being able to do some actual planning, perhaps some of these spot recognition awards, but what about the reporting? And we actually have quite a few different types or varieties of reporting. First off are these tiles, these dashboards that you're seeing here on the home page. And we've talked about these a little bit, that they are dynamic in nature, that I can click on any one of these tiles and then drill into this information to find my data results here. So this is a list of my salaried employees that are paid monthly. Here they are. Here's their division, department, location. I've got my export button here. I can pull this list out into a CSV or Excel sheet. If I'm a manager with a large area of responsibility, and Maya happens to be that type of manager, Or if I'm an HR generalist or a business partner or a compensation specialist and I manage a large area as well, then I can use this filter button here to change some of the parameters of the data that's being shown. If I want to narrow it in on a specific division or location or department, then I can do so. And we have the ability to put some other filters here as well. So that will dynamically change the results that are shown here, both the graphical view and the resulting list of data. For a lot of folks, this is a nice, quick, and easy way to get reporting. You can see we have some compensation-specific dashes as well. We have a whole series, a whole library of these different dashes broken out by functional area. You can choose to put them right here on the home page. We saw that they are also available right on that compensation planning screen. And some of them are actually available on our mobile devices as well. So we have a mobile application that supports the various different features of our solution, and pulling some of these dashboard tiles into the mobile device is also available. But what if we want to come in and do some type of formal, robust reporting? We can have a reporting icon here that takes us into the reporting screen, or we can use this alternate home dropdown up here in the top left-hand corner. And so I'll just come in and drop down to reporting. And again, the system is recognizing who's using the system. In this case, it's Maya, and we know that she's the manager. So she's just going to be pulling reports for her team or her area of responsibility. When someone like Anya, our system administrator, logs in, she'll have a broader view of things and quite possibly some additional reports. We have a whole library of reports delivered with our system, several hundred across different functional areas. If I have access to this screen, this reporting center, then I can just come in and start typing in some basic keywords. The system is going to do a query search for me and then return a series of results. Now we have a handful of different types of reports. As I was mentioning, we saw the first one on that home screen, that was the tile. We also have what we call dashboards. That is a combination of one or more tiles on a single page. So some of those tiles that we saw on that home page can actually be pulled onto a single sheet. We have our traditional rows and columns, so similar to an Excel spreadsheet type report. Again, that's where my loyalties lie because I like to look at the data. We also have this concept of a canvas, which is one or more of these items consolidated together. So it's possible to have a tile or two here at the top and then that reporting data here at the bottom. It's also possible to put in multiple tables and do some things like pivots and lookups and what have you. So you can get pretty creative with the types of reports that you like to use. We have tools such as this one I have open now to create our own reports. And again, we have several hundred standard delivered reports across this system. So here's just a kind of a snapshot, if you will. I'm going to come in here and open up this compensation analytics dashboard so we can see what a composition of some of these different tiles looks like. This is all standard delivered with the system. Here we have our breakout of salary and hourly employees, team's total compensation, compensation by performance score, average compensation by department, and then average compensation by gender. Again, all of these dashboards are dynamic, so if I want to go in and find out those specific values, who those 157 monthly salaried employees are, I can drill into that piece and get that bit of information. Again, I have my export button here where I can pull this data directly out of the system into a spreadsheet report. And I can jump back to my overall dashboard here. Because Maya is an upper level manager, she has this filter button where again, she can come in and restrict these values based on common data fields such as division, department, and location. So nice, clean, easy way for managers and compensation specialists to get data out of the system. Okay, let me go ahead then and pull up some of our closing slides. We've got a little over 5 minutes left, so we'll have a little bit of time for questions. Okay. Rihanna, I'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. And once again, thank you for your presentation. So just to give some people some time, if you do have additional questions for Becky, feel free to type those in and we'll try to get to as many as possible. In addition, as a reminder for everyone here today, this is part 3 of a talent management webinar series. Part 1 covered the learning management system module within SAP SuccessFactors, and part 2 covered recruiting and onboarding. So if you want to go back and visit either one of those parts, they will be shared with all of our audience members and participants in a follow-up email that will be going out later on tomorrow. In addition, you'll also have a link to today's recording. So with that being said, let's get to a few of the questions that have come in. So first question for you, Becky. Can the guidelines be modified once created and have the tile updated with the new information, or does a new model need to be created for every scenario?
Excellent question. Yes, the guidelines can be changed. That's one of kind of the key benefits of a solution like ours, is that you can kind of tweak and massage things as you go, hoping to ultimately get to your target number. So the system will make recommendations on guidelines to kind of alter or tweak, but certainly you can run through and massage those guidelines on your own as well. Excellent question.
Awesome. Question number 2 is, what currencies are currently supported by SAP SuccessFactors Compensation, and can we plan in a different currency?
The answer to that is all of them. And I know that sounds a little silly, but I actually have a customer that operates in over 125 different countries, and they use this tool for their compensation planning. And when I was working with their main administrator, that was her only requirement, that the solution be able to plan in every currency, because they wanted people to feel comfortable planning in their own local currency. So we do support all of the currencies. They come delivered with our system, and then we provide you with tools for updating them to your own conversion factors based on your internal accounting conversion factors. And yes, you can flip back and forth. There's a toggle button on that planning sheet that allows a manager to flip back and forth between the manager's own currency, the employee's local currency, and then a corporate currency. We kind of set one key corporate currency to do the initial budgeting. And then from there, those values can be viewed in the converted currencies. Great question.
Awesome. So next question, I think this is in relation to a section you were covering a little later on in the presentation when you were going through the compensation profiles. So this participant is looking to confirm that the employee is able to see compensation profiles, or is it just the manager, or can the manager only view what you were showing within the system?
Well, that is up to you. You can kind of control who has access to see or do what in the system. Typically, that screen is used by managers, but there is actually an employee view of that screen. The key difference, of course, is that an employee only sees him or herself, and only after the awards have been submitted and finalized. So they can go in and kind of reference some of those data points after all is said and done. Whereas the manager, of course, has an in-flight view, so they can see the values as they're being entered and updated, and then has the ability to see their entire team and an area of responsibility below. Excellent question.
So last question for today. Is there an ability to do all of the compensation planning offline?
Yes, there is actually an export and plan offline button. I probably had it hidden on the screen. When you do choose to plan offline, so you can export that sheet out, some of my customers do that. They basically use this as a tool to generate Excel sheets, and then a tool ultimately to compile the Excel sheets, because you can import them back in. I feel like you lose some of the transparency and your ability to kind of monitor the process when you pull it offline. But certainly the system does support offline planning, and then you can import those sheets back in and it syncs them all together. So if that is, just a need for your business, that can certainly be accommodated in the tool set.
Awesome. That was the last question we have for today, unless we have any stragglers that have any other questions for Becky. With that being said, I'd like to thank everyone who came out today to participate in today's webcast. At the end of exiting this webinar, you will receive a survey to provide us with some feedback, which we would greatly appreciate it. We like to use the feedback we get from you guys to plan what our next topics are. So if there are any other modules or topics within SAP SuccessFactors that you'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know in that survey. We do plan on having a part 4 of this series later on in the month. So look out for continuing communications on what that topic will be. But with that being said, thank you for everyone who attended today's webinar. And on behalf of Illumity HCM, I hope you all have a great day today.
Thanks, everyone.